Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. So I think if you're ready, we'll get started.
Let's do this.
Okay. Uh, Hi there. I am Laura Sage, and I am so excited for this episode of Mind Over Matter with Bose Akadiri, who I'm really happy to see you. I'm glad we got to connect a little bit beforehand. It had been a long time since we'd seen each other in person, but you kind of made my day already. So thank you. Seriously.
Well,
And thank you for taking the time to chat with me a little bit.
well, thank you for having me. You are definitely making my day today. I have been looking forward to this, and I just can't wait till we dig in deeper.
So Bossy, you reminded me how we met. I knew that Ellie Foreman at Mesero, who's their head of community engagement, had introduced us years ago, but I forgot the story. Will you share with me the story again? Because it made me smile.
Definitely. This is one of my favorite stories. And so, of course, you're one of my angels, one of my sheroes, someone I look up to. And the reason I use the word angel is because when I was in my 20s, I had a dream of moving to Chicago. I worked in the philanthropy sector in Oklahoma, and I didn't know a soul here in Chicago. And when I got here, I knew I had to figure out how to make it. And I met Ellie, and she introduced me to you because you had an opening for a fundraiser. And I was so thankful to Ellie for introducing me to you. And when we met and we had our interview, you were so kind and so warm and so loving, and most importantly, genuine. And even though you didn't offer me a job, you offered me something so much better. You offered me dignity, hope, and you really validated me as a professional. You said to me that you thought I could do the job. You knew I could do the job, but you knew that I was meant for something greater. And so you didn't want to hold me back. And that stuck with me. That was 6 years ago now. And all like my mom, my friends, everybody knows Laura Sage, chill, because I admire you. And every time we go to chill, I'm like, this is the woman who gave me a chance in Chicago and reminded me to believe in myself.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind story. I'm going to take a couple steps back here for a second. I remember, first of all, maybe everybody who's listening might not know this, but my mom passed away from breast cancer when I was a child. And my family and some of my mom's friends started a nonprofit organization. So we were introduced in the context of the Lynn Sage Foundation, which raises money for breast cancer researchers. And we were looking for somebody to help us with fundraising. And I thought you were too qualified for that job. It was an important job by all means, but it wasn't a leadership role. And I thought that you should have been in a leadership role. So just to make a little bit more clarity and context in terms of that beautiful story. Also, you reminded me I drove you home. So I remember my perception of you and that you were fabulous, but I completely forgot that I had driven you home and that the weather was bad.
It was snowing. It was my first Chicago snowstorm. And you said, come on, I'll drive you home. And I thought, who is this woman? She's an angel. So,
Well, she's somebody who knows how bad the weather gets in Chicago soon. I mean, we're recording this right now and it's November. And I always recall that the first snowstorm that's material happens right around Thanksgiving. So we must have met after Thanksgiving 6+ years ago.
that's so true. I didn't even think about that. Wow. Time flies.
Time does fly, and you have gone on to do bigger and better things and helped a lot of people. You currently have and have held roles in philanthropy with Fortune 50 companies, very enviable, coveted positions that are hard to come by. And in that capacity, you've helped a lot of people, and you've probably been presented with even more great proposals and had to synthesize all of these important projects to decide what were the most important based on your company's mandate to fund. But in addition to that, you've also started another business. So you want to tell us a little bit about both roles and how you're combining them and how you're managing having basically two full-time jobs?
Definitely. So it's a lot. And I think at the core of things, I have to remember mindfulness and to be centered for myself. But yes, exactly like you said, I am fortunate enough that after I met you and Ellie and a couple of other angels, I was introduced to the role that I sit in now. And so I do corporate philanthropy at a Fortune 50, where I run programs such as Gift Match, where we match about $25 million a year to community, which is incredible. I match our employees with different volunteer opportunities, and I do some grant making. And so I really, really love, that was my big goal. And it kind of ties in together because when I was looking at moving from Chicago to Oklahoma City, I knew that I wanted to not only make this move to a larger city, but that I wanted to land a position at a Fortune 50 that was doing corporate social philanthropy. And so once I segued there, I also knew my next goal was to start a business that I could help others pivot. I wanted to be that space in women's life where you could dream limitlessly, where you didn't have to think about what should I be doing? What does the world think I should be doing? But what is it that brings me joy and I want to be doing? And so that's why I developed Goal and Grind, where I look at, with my clients at life in a holistic way. So we set a vision for life, thinking about what makes us happy, what makes us not happy, so that we have that base model. And then we look at 4 key areas: personal, professional, health, and financial. See, what I realized, Laura, is that for so long, I was just zeroed in on my professional, and I wasn't really focusing on my personal life or my health or barely even my finances. So I was killing it. Here I am, top of my game at this Fortune 50. I've got a great career. I'm very thankful for that job. However, I had stopped paying attention to all my other goals.
Mhm.
And so once I started to refocus and look at my life like I'm a whole person, that gave me more clarity on how to help others do that as well. And so Goal and Grind really started, you could almost say like Tupperware parties. I would do this with my friends, and we'd do it once a year. Everyone started saying, you've developed these materials. Why are you not sharing this with others? How can we amplify this? And so having the dual roles is very fun because I get to do grant making by day and support nonprofits in STEM education as well as veterans initiatives. And then I also get to support women in dreaming and living their big goals.
So I'm assuming that Goal and Grind, all of your, the people that you advise, that you coach, are they all female?
The majority are female. However, I do have some male clients. I believe it is a method that works for all,
Mhm.
but it is very women focused.
And you sort of alluded to Tupperware parties, which are not happening right now because we're recording this in the midst of the pandemic. How is your business growing through word of mouth? We spoke beforehand and you had told me that you had taken a social media holiday. So I'm trying to, maybe you could tell everybody, how do you grow a business like this, especially if you're not leaning into social media, or perhaps you were and took a step away. How did that look?
Definitely. And I really appreciate you bringing up the social media aspect because one of the biggest things in the pandemic, I feel very grateful to have had growth during it. A lot of my business is coming from word of mouth. I'm very thankful for the clients that I've had for believing in my process and sharing it with others. So a lot of word of mouth. My social media hiatus, and full disclosure, was mainly things like Facebook and Instagram.
Mhm.
And so I still maintain a presence on LinkedIn and just doing soft touches. I actually was just writing an ebook, just a little like e-work guide
Good
on
for
this
you.
about how do we network in the pandemic? How
Mhm.
do we do this? I have met the most amazing people during it, doing virtual coffees, just really being interested because I do have a thirst for learning, not only about growing my own knowledge, but learning what are other people doing? What makes you tick, right? And so I found that really people are very open and willing to connect. We are all looking for those different types of connections. So quite often, I've just gone through my LinkedIn and
Mhm.
I see like people that have potentially like reached out to me at some point, but we might have never connected because we're going here and there. to and from. And the pandemic has really given us a chance to slow down. And I'll reach out and just a simple, hey, I'm really trying to get to know everyone I'm connected with on LinkedIn. I see this is what you're working on. I'd love to learn more.
Mhm.
Can we set up a virtual
It
coffee?
opens a nice discussion.
Right. And so maybe they don't end up a client. Maybe they do. That's not actually the point of it. The point of it is that human connection and interaction. Because if you don't know what somebody else is working on, how can you begin to support them?
Mhm. So I am eager to hear how you were originally introduced to mindfulness because um, I walked into Chill one day and you were there. I didn't even know that you knew about Chill. I was really happy to see you, by the way. But you knew about mindfulness before Chill as a studio was opened. How did that happen? And um, do you integrate that into your coaching process, or is it just kind of guide you as an instructor? I'm interested in learning about that relationship a bit.
Definitely. So, one of my dear friends, who's also a yoga instructor, introduced me to mindfulness, and I was addicted. It for me,
It's funny, I always say don't binge meditate. Like,
to meditate.
oh, do not binge meditate.
Right. Um, so to me, though, the thing is, mindfulness can come in different forms, right? You've got your meditation, but you can also be mindful in your everyday, like intention setting and how you're going about living your day, how you're going about interacting with others. It's about that, being intentional about what you're doing. And so I mean, I remember when Chill opened, I think that I saw you post something on LinkedIn and I was immediately like, I mean,
That's validating. Thank you.
and I thought, I'm a believer in Laura. I need to see what this is. And I saw it and I loved how you mixed both the personal and the professional aspects of mindfulness. And so I just started going and checking it out. I had a few friends that were also interested. And so I would invite them. And then there's also been some really unique opportunities at Chill that I just, to me, I felt really touched and humbled by them. And so everything from like the survivors classes or the women of color classes, everything's very intentional. It's very mindful forward. And so that's, I've even brought my mom in and she had never meditated before. So that was a really special time when she visited. Because, she's like, are we going to be silent for 30 minutes? What's happening here? And I'm like, just trust me, mom.
Right. We might be silent, but not everybody in the room will be silent. It's easier than people fear, right?
Right. It's one of those things you just have to go. You can't fully explain it. You just have to go. And then the environment. So it's like, so since I'm from Oklahoma and there isn't something like Chill there, some of my friends from Oklahoma are actually do some of the online courses. So that's been
Right.
definitely
Right.
beneficial from COVID. I know there's not a lot that we can say has been beneficial from COVID, but I like to try to find the pluses and things. So there's that. I'm trying to think. You reminded me of something you were saying when you were asking that question. Oh, it'll come to me. It'll come to me.
Well, you made me think of, for me personally, meditation, the act of taking a meditation class or practicing, um, helps me sustain my mindfulness outside of a studio or outside of a cushion. It kind of reminds me of that discipline of being in the present moment, and not ruminating about the past. Or for me personally, I get anxious about the future a lot, especially running a business. It's easy to get wrapped up in, what should we be planning for? What should we be scared about? That type of thing. And just my DNA tends to get me towards a nervous state pretty quickly. And so for me, practicing and being on a cushion, whether it be in silence or whether it be guided by one of Chill's beautiful guides, helps remind me of the present moment, which is then all about being mindful when you're having relationships or whether you're eating or you're exercising or really in anything we do during the day. Um, I try to ask people that I have an opportunity to do one of these sessions with, do you skew in one direction or the other? Do you tend to think more about the past, or do you tend to think more about the future?
My ruminating thoughts are all about the past, Laura.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
and this is something that, in full disclosure, I struggle with sometimes, thinking, what if I had said that? Or what if it had gone differently? All those what ifs sometimes, just that's why I tend to lean more towards the past than the presence with my ruminating thoughts. But I definitely think that mindfulness helps with that because it helps me to center and just leave it there, just leave it so that I can move forward and be in those joyful, very like intentional thoughts. And now also, I just remembered what you made me think of with that last question. So I'm going to kind of go back a second. So
Rewind
with
a little.
my, yeah, I'm like, let me rewind.
Yeah, you can do that.
With my clients in Goal and Grind, we start every session intentionally, and I ask them, is there anything, any sort of clearing that we need to do? And that's the mindfulness moment. It might be a moment of breath work. It might be a moment of literally just word vomiting on me so they can get out any ruminating
Mhm.
thoughts before it starts. I like it to be whatever feels most comfortable for the client, but we definitely do incorporate that intentionality, and I'm mindful about that at the beginning of every session, because you never know how someone's day has been, right?
Mhm.
And so it makes it very difficult to just jump into, okay, what's your goals? How are we going to get there? Really to just relax, have some breath work, and then get started. It's a lot more.
It's smart though, because if you're trying to have a conversation and you know that somebody's head is elsewhere, as opposed to just be like, hey, 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 back to me. Why don't you say, let's lay it on the table right now. Let's work through this as much as we can, and then we'll get started. It's a gift that you're giving them.
Right. And it is so helpful. I mean, I can remember last week I had a client that I don't know if he planned to come like this, but in his moment, you know, there was a lot happening in his life. His mom is in the process of passing away from dementia. And it was just had to get all of that out before we could look at anything else. And it was a really special, meaningful moment, you know.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
a real gift that you're giving your clients. Um, and really, these days, in the midst of a pandemic and um, a lot of discourse and political uncertainty, who isn't going through a hard time? I mean, almost everybody knows someone who is sick. It's really tough out there, and I think about this a lot. We talked about this also beforehand, but I'm socializing, which is kind of a word I have a love-hate relationship with. Um, this idea of, we know a tool that helps people be more mindful, right? And frankly, be more compassionate and more more empathic. And so I keep trying to think, with this tool, how can we bring people together with different ideas? Not in a way to convince them that my ideas are right or that your ideas are right, but just to help encourage this ability to listen to ideas that are different than ours, and to encourage compassion and empathy, and better communication skills. And so I am really thinking about how can people that believe in mindfulness and meditation do that. So I'm you're the first person I'm starting with this movement, but if you have any ideas, um, please keep me in mind, because I really want to help use mindfulness and meditation as a tool to bring people together, and intentionally bring people together. Maybe choose a group of, I'm making this up, but 8 people, and know that half are from one political party and half are from another. But could we all sit for 30 minutes and get guided in a beautiful breath session, with no judgment, and maybe get to know each other a little bit? Do you have any?
yeah. So my biggest thought is that it's hard to hate me once you get to know me, you know?
For
And
sure,
actually that
that's true.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty sure the majority of humans are that way. Um,
Yes.
I definitely am a big believer that we're all here to love one another. And I truly believe everyone's destined for greatness, whatever form or shape that might be. We have different talents, we have different strengths. And I want to know what other people's talents and strengths are, because together, I'm like doing this behind, I'm like, together we are stronger. And so to me, it's about first having that acceptance within so that you can have a clear slate when looking at others.
Yeah, maybe we try to get people together and emphasize what's good about everybody in the room as opposed to what's bad. And then once we've done that, maybe a little bit of the anger, a little bit of the the violence, the agitation will subside.
Well, and this actually just made me think of something. Are you familiar with the book, The Four Agreements?
Nope. Uh-uh.
Okay. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what all the agreements are, but they're very simple, just like assuming good intent of all.
Mhm.
Those sorts of things. I think the Four Agreements is a great book to kind of start with and read and think about these things through different lenses. But then something that we actually learn in coaching school is about forming agreements with each other. So when coaching classes and courses first start, what they have us do as pre-work is come up with proposed agreements. Things like confidentiality, things like how we will talk to each other and how we'll work together. And the coaching classes are very small, so only like 10 to 12 people. And the very first course, we all bring one or two things to the table that would help us work and communicate with each other. And so we co-create the agreement for how we're going to communicate and work together for 6 months or so within a coach training course. And that to me has been incredible, because we know we're all there for the purpose of developing and fine tuning and elevating our skills as coaches. But we don't know who one another are. We don't know where we're coming from. And I think that's where a lot of things get lost in translation. So when we come up with these things together, such as we're going to own what we say and we're going to own how we perceive what others say. Those are just some examples of agreements that have come up during my coaching classes. Or we're going to assume good intent from our fellow coaches in classes, things like that. It's been incredible because we're all there on the same page. And then at the
Rules of the road, right? And people
right,
follow.
right.
Yeah.
Then typically at the end of the 6 months or so, however long the cohort is, you'll actually revisit those.
Mhm.
And everybody gets to talk about, do you feel like we honored them? Do you feel like we paid attention and we were
You're
mindful?
held accountable.
Exactly. And if ever there's something going on, because there's always going to be little tensions, right? But it's how big do we let those tensions get? So if there's ever these tensions, we would go back to those agreements and say, how can we work through them together while honoring what we set out to honor?
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's great. I love it. So you will probably hear back from me again once this idea grows a little bit more.
It's an
Um,
evolution, Laura. It's an evolution. We'll
well, you
keep talking
start
about
small and we get feedback and we evolve and we can grow this movement. We have to do something, and I think everybody has to do something. It doesn't have to be the same thing, but we're all going to have attitude adjustments to make this planet a better place. Um, and right now, in terms of social interactions, the bar is so low. So let's just get started to bring it to a more positive place. I know you feel that way.
it.
Before we wrap up, Bossy, what did I not ask that you'd like to let people know about you?
Yes. So, you know what? I'll go with this. I want to share that I am a believer that we can't let anybody shit on our lives. It's what I tell myself this, I tell my friends this, I tell my family this. And what I mean by it is when we're younger, we start out with this fresh palette of ideas and things that we're interested in. And then as we grow, there's all these questions. First when you're, in elementary school, what do you want to be when you grow up? As though a 6-year-old knows what they want to be. And then it's, where are you going to college? And who are you marrying? And kids, how many kids are you having? What's your career? And I just really want to encourage everyone to pause, think about what makes you happy. And is that what you're doing? Because we can't let anybody shit on our lives. We've got
I'm going to add one more thing to that. I think a lot of times people are their own worst critic. So make sure that you also treat yourself the way that you treat your best friend. So don't let anybody shit on your life, but also don't do that to yourself, right?
Exactly. I love that. Yes. How would you treat your best friend?
Yeah, and treat yourself that way. Me too. I'm saying that to me too. You know? So Bossy, how can people find you if they want to learn more about goal and grind and about you? Like, how can people get in?
Definitely. So I'm on LinkedIn. So Bose Akadiri, but also goalandgrind.com. So you can go to my website, and there you can actually, if you want to, I offer free consultations. So you can schedule right there. There's a scheduling tool, and it has my complete availability, and you can book a little 30-minute time for me. And I would love to visit with anyone who's interested. But yeah, goalandgrind.com.
Well, and on LinkedIn, so Bossy spells her first name Bose. Do we keep the accent aigu with LinkedIn or no?
We do. We keep
Okay.
it.
Okay. And then her last name is Akadiri.
That's right. Perfect.
So just want to make sure people can get in touch with you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was
Such a
truly
joy.
the highlight of my day. So much fun. You are a ray of sunshine. We have sunshine outside, but I'm glad I get it from all directions. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Laura. This was so much fun. And you know what? We're going to keep in touch and keep talking about this socialism idea, and we'll get it. Or
Okay,
socialize.
excellent.
Socialize, not social.
Socializing the idea of bringing people together. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.